Hello, Maverick traders, and welcome out to your currency recap. This is Ankit here, and let's begin our market coverage. It's a Tuesday, October the 17th, and what a volatile day in the markets. So let's quickly take a quick look at what happened in the markets today, do a broad market analysis, take a look at the currency basket, see where we're seeing relative strength or weakness, and boil it down to the possible trade setups ahead. So let's get into it.
Disclaimer. This video was created for professional stock and option traders. Maverick Trading is a proprietary trading firm that employs professional traders around the world. Our traders trade firm capital and keep 70 to 80% of profits they generate. All trades and analysis in this video are for professional traders only. If you are interested in becoming a professional trader for Maverick, click the apply button in the video description. Let's break down what happened today.
So looking at the market recap today, let's just start with the news. Actually, market closed flat today, but it was a volatile session. When you can take a look at this intraday chart on the S&P 500, you can see that we had quite a bit of back and forth, and we just kind of closed right in the middle there. So at some part of the day, we had a risk on, and some part of the day, we had a risk off. So this is what we call volatility, and you really have to trade with what's in front of you. One of the big stories is really the bond yields that continue to gain after the stronger U.S. retail sales report. So all the U.S. data has been pointing out to the upside. So right now, everything is looking bullish for the yields to even continue going higher, which is, again, is putting a lot of these pressure on other asset classes as well, including the equities, including the dollar. That's just bouncing things around. So you got to pay attention to those bond yields. Now, let's take a look at the numbers. So if you take a look at the numbers, you realize, well, it was not a whole lot. But if you look at intraday price action, we definitely had a lot of movements, especially in dollar, as we saw those bond yields move back and forth. We also had a nice movement. The best currency pair for the day was the Aussie Kiwi. Look at that. Aussie up 0.5% and Kiwi down 0.5%. So about a 1% move in Aussie Kiwi pair. That's a one currency pair that we'll be paying attention to in later on this class. Kiwi again underperformed after a weaker CPI number. Then guess what? Canada as well had a weaker CPI number. So these are the two currency pairs that I do like further to the downside. The inflation numbers were not as strong, especially for the Canada. We were expecting a stronger number, and now the anticipation for a rate hike in the next meeting has gone down substantially. So that would affect the Canadian dollar. We'll take a look at it. Outside of that, you can see Euro is outperforming, especially the Swiss franc. That's another pair that we need to pay attention to. And finally, the dollar and the yen. I mean, we talk about it, how the dollar is really being pulled back and forth. I mean, dollar is not showing that much outperformance, but at the same time, it's getting pulled by those rising bond yields. So if you want to avoid that volatility, I think there are better pairs to trade, especially the yen, which is continuing to be on the weaker side. So overall, decent trading day. And I think with next 24 hours looks interesting as well. Now, let's take a look at the broader markets, and you can see how S&P flat, World Stock Index flat. So really the big movement was in the bond market. So I think we really need to see the bonds yields sort of pull back for really markets to rally. But overall, that will again continue to put some pressure on the markets here. I mean, take a look at outside of the bond market. I mean, gold was also flat as well. Oil was slightly up. So everything seems to be where it started, but we'll have to see what happened in the next 24 hours and how those impacts from today will carry over into the next 24 hours. Now, crypto markets, Bitcoin held in, but everything else sort of went down. And we have talked about it. The crypto markets, it seems to be, going back and forth. I'm not a big fan of it right now. There's definitely better price action outside of the crypto market here. So let's take a look at the score. Right now, we're sitting at a 0. Why a 0? Let's take a look at where we are in the charts. Now, in the chart, you can see that we are above the 20-day moving average, but we are below the 50-day moving average, and we're kind of wedged in between. So usually, this is the kind of setup where it can really go either way. We can either break above this level or we can break below this level. But until then, we are range bound. But overall, if you take a look at the price action, it looks a little bit more bullish than it does look bearish. So as we talk about seasonality patterns, we talk about everything else, I mean, markets are holding in much better, especially with this rising bond yield. So something got to give up. We'll have to see which market catches up with which one. But it's interesting where we are right now, and that's what we've got to trade what's in front of us. Looking at the schedule here, we had quite a big announcements already out of the way. We had the Kiwi CPI. Take a look at that. 1.8 versus 1.9, below expectation. And take a look at today's number, Canadian CPI. That was also below expectation, 3.8 versus 4 on the median, and the CPI month over month was negative 0.1 versus 0.1. So again, below expectation. Cool, giving the central banks a little bit more breathing room for them to not raise rates, and that will be shown in this upcoming meetings ahead. Now, looking at the U.S. retail sales number, take a look at that, 0.6 versus 0.2. So why this is an important thing? Because the central bank is really wanting to bring these numbers down. But guess what? If the numbers are still going up, economy looks strong, people are spending money, and that's what? That's good for the economy, and that's why the yields are rising. So we'll have to see what happens in the next 24 hours, probably see a continuation of some of the movements that we saw today. Tonight, we have the industrial production from China. I haven't really seen a big movement of these numbers. I mean, unless, these numbers are sort of off the expectation, but so far I really haven't seen a big change off of it. We have another CPI number that is tomorrow, the pound CPI. Remember, the UK CPI was out of control, but then the number has been falling. So if this number comes up below expectation, I wouldn't be surprised pound fall on that news as well. So I think these inflation numbers are not coming out stronger. And if that's the case, then that's weaker for the currency. And then tomorrow night, we also have the Aussie employment report. So some of these news events definitely are having a good impact on currencies. And that's where we're really seeing big movements coming in. So we got to really pay attention to these news events and follow through price action. So let's get into currency analysis and take a look at what the velocity score is telling us.
Do you want to be a professional trader? Maverick Currencies is the oldest US-based Forex and crypto prop trading company that will pay you for trading with our capital. Trade our capital and keep 70 to 80% of the profits. We are looking for traders just like you that are hardworking and motivated. Click the apply link on the top right of this video to see if you have what it takes. That link takes you to a 4-minute video that explains the trader position available, and you read a list of FAQs that answer pretty much all the basic questions you have at this point. After watching the video and reading the FAQs, if you're interested, fill out an application, then you'll watch the full-length recruiting video, and then schedule an interview with one of our traders. Are you our next trader?
And looking at the velocity scores, so it's pretty clear. We have Euro and the Aussie on the stronger side, and we have Kiwi, CAD, and the Yen on the weaker side. Now we have currencies in the middle here, which is not going anywhere. We'll pay close attention to those currencies, but they're not the one that are a mover. The pound, because we have a CPI number tomorrow, likely to move one way or the other. So the pound is a mover tomorrow, but the dollar and the Swiss franc kind of right in the middle there. So let's take a look at Euro and Aussie against the CAD, the Kiwi, and the Yen. So let's just start with some important currency pairs that I want to pay attention to. As far as we pay attention to relative strength and weakness, look at Aussie and Kiwi. So you can see how these currencies, they do diverge and then they go sideways. But whenever they diverge, big movements happen. You can see back here, earlier this summer, we had a big move against Aussie against the Kiwi. And you can see how we went from 105.75 all the way to 110. And we went from 110 down to 107. So these are sizable moves when they do happen. And here we are, we almost went from 106.30 up to 107.95. And that's a pretty nice move, getting us right above the 50-day moving average. So the scoring has changed, and I think Aussie looks better to me now, as it has done in the past few days and weeks. Now, Kiwi, which has been the best performer, is now underperforming. So again, whenever these rotations happen, we need to make sure we change with that. So take a look at this 4-hour chart on Aussie Kiwi. beautiful breakout, and you can see how little pullback is happening, which means that this thing wants to run higher. Any sort of pullbacks or consolidation is where we want to get into it as a second stage entry. If you have not been already in this position, look for that consolidation pattern. But overall, it's pretty clear Aussie is outperforming the Kiwi, and that's really what we want to be. Now, the second pair, Euro Swiss franc. Remember, the Euro Swiss franc, I talked about it in the currency room, that we broke a very important level of support last Friday. So you can see that after that, we haven't had any follow through. So this is, again, a good indication that maybe the euro actually will strengthen against the franc, which again is telling us that if this gets above this level here, then we are back in the range, which means that we can look at a euro over the Swiss franc. But as you can see, for the last few days and weeks, we have seen a euro underperforming the Swiss franc. So these are important currency pairs to pay attention to, because that's how you're going to pick that right pairing. Is it the euro better or is it the Swiss franc better? Right now, I think I'm seeing this sort of a breakout here, but no follow through. And I won't be surprised we actually kind of get back into the range here. So I like the euro more than the Swiss franc here, especially as we get above this level. So let's talk about the underperformers. So Kiwi, I talked about how Kiwi is looking weak. So let's take a look at Kiwi. We looked at against the Aussie, but let's take a look at Kiwi against the euro. So here we are. Oh, let's try that again. Euro Kiwi. So if you take a look at Euro Kiwi, you can see beautiful pattern. We got right above it, the 20 moving average. So this is where we know the direction. Now, what time frame we want to use it on? So you can see how 4-hour chart, we got a base here, we broke out. Another base here. I like to see a breakout above that level. And even on a 15-hourly chart, we are basing very nicely here, and on a 15-minute chart. So you can see all these time frames are aligning with each other. So I like Euro Kiwi on the long side. And lastly, let's talk about the CAD. So CAD had a small movement today off the CPI, but could the CAD weaken? I think it could. So this is where, if I have to really look at the odds of where I want to place the bet, I like CAD short over the long. So in that case, let's take a look at some of the Canadian dollar crosses. So Euro CAD, right there. We got a nice resistance here at 144.50. A break above that. I like it further to the upside. 4-hour chart, 12-hour chart, daily chart, they all will support a breakout above that level. So I do like that as well. Same thing, Aussie CAD. If the Aussie, you can see the Aussie CAD has been moving lower and lower, and we have been in this downward channel. So if it's trying to get above it, 87.50 is the level, first level of a serious resistance. So this is where, there's an overhead resistance, but it has room for this to run before it tests the resistance. So I like this gradual way up on this upside here if this start to run higher, if the Aussie continue to strengthen. And then lastly, if I want to just purely pay attention to relative strength weakness, dollar CAD. Dollar CAD is testing this key resistance level at 37. You can see we have tested 1, 2, 3, and now 4 times of that resistance. So if it does break above this area, I think it has a lot of room for this to run as well, as far as the relative strength weakness goes. So that also goes on the list here as well. So again, I like CAD short, I like the Kiwi short, and we want to pair it against the euro, against the Aussie. Lastly, the pound. Pound can be a big mover either way, depending on where the number comes out, but I expect the inflation number to be weaker. And right now you can see that this is a weak price action. This is a sort of a bear rally here. So I wouldn't be surprised if we end up just breaking that support tomorrow if that number comes out weaker than expected. So in that case, we can pair currency pairs like euro against the pound, especially right here, break above this level of 87.04. I like it further to the upside from there. We can also then, same thing, we can pair strong versus a weak, and we can also take a look at the pound versus the euro as well on a further breakdown. So again, we have good movements happening. It's a matter of using the right time frame, using the right approach to get the right results. So that's a game plan for tomorrow. Kiwi CAD yen, likely to underperform. Aussie and Euro likely to outperform. And outside of that, keep an eye on headlines, keep an eye on the bond yields, because those are the variables that are affecting a lot of the movements in the markets. As always, focus on momentum, play relative to weakness, and make sure you have a proper position sizing. Thanks for joining, and have a good rest of the evening. We'll see you in the next update. Happy trading.